U.S. and Iran, senior officials concluded the first face-to-face talks over Iran's nuclear program since the 12-day war last June. President Trump said more talks were coming and offered a positive outlook for future negotiations. I think Iran looks like they want to make a deal very badly, as they should. Last time they decided maybe not to do it, but I think they probably feel differently. Joining me now is Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor, political and national security analyst. Good to have you here, Ben. So I want to get your reaction to the president's comments there. Did you learn anything? Because negotiations ended with no agreement, so is this still considered a win for the U.S.? Well, no, we don't know anything yet about the substance of what was really discussed. I'll say something we did learn there, Alex, which is that you'll recall that this latest round of tensions started because Donald Trump said he was going to come to the aid of Iranian protesters. And he said, if any of them are killed, help will be on the way, implicitly threatening the use of military force. Subsequently, thousands of protesters were killed. And now they're negotiating nothing to do with human rights or protesters. All that's coming out is it's about nuclear issue. It's about the ballistic missile issue. So what we've learned is he said this is not about, protecting the right of peaceful protest inside of Iran. It's about geopolitics. It's about the nuclear program, which, again, also Trump said was obliterated a few months ago. But we're now negotiating about it again. So, the Iranians are playing for time. They're trying to avoid another strike. The Americans are trying to see how much they can get. And we'll see if it actually yields an agreement or if it just ends up being, an ongoing set of talks for the sake of avoiding war, which is not a bad reason to talk, frankly. Yeah, you have White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt who said that Trump could consider options outside of diplomacy. Listen to what she said. While these negotiations are taking place, I would remind the Iranian regime that the president has many options at his disposal aside from diplomacy as the commander-in-chief of the. Can you even envision a military strike without direct provocation or threats? I could. You'll recall the last time the U.S. bombed Iran last year, we were in the middle of negotiations with them over the nuclear program. So Trump has demonstrated his capacity to kind of talk and then use military force even before it seems like those talks have played out. What I feel like has happened here is, look, so there's no easy military solution to any of these issues, right? Even if you decapitated the Iranian regime, this is a country of over 90 million people with a lot of violent factions that would be more likely to seize control, frankly, than peaceful protesters are a possibility for implosion. Feels to me, Alex, like some of the key countries in the region who are close to Trump, like the Saudis and Qatar and Turkey, have really tried to persuade him not to go down this military path because of the ways it could end badly. At the same time, you have Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's encouraged a military action in the past, making pretty maximalist demands for what he would like to see in a deal, which is not just an end to the Iranian nuclear program, but an end to the ballistic missile program which can threaten Israel and its security. The Iranians are very unlikely to give up on the ballistic missiles, just in my experience. The nuclear program is something they're willing to deal on. So I are calling it a badly negotiated deal. What's your reaction to that, Ben? Was it? And what are the difficulties today trying to create a new deal from scratch? Would Trump potentially have to widen discussions, say, to include China and others? Yeah, I'll tie these things together, Alex. There are two things in common. Barack Obama negotiated the New START treaty with Russia, and Barack Obama negotiated a nuclear deal with Iran, and Trump is now pulled out of both of those deals. The Russia one is even more baffling to me. This is a no-brainer to just extend this deal. The way it was constructed is that you just continue the deal, and so people who don't follow this closely, this means that the New START treaty limits the number of nuclear weapons that can be deployed. It creates a monitoring and verification regime so both countries know what's going on in each other's nuclear arsenal. This has a tradition all the way back to United States and Russia. We have the Cold War, presidents like Ronald Reagan, presidents of both parties negotiated treaties like this. Importantly, there is now absolutely no arms control agreement between the United States and Russia. It's just gone, right? So we are less safe. The Russians can develop whatever they want without any negotiated limits. We have no verification and monitoring into their nuclear weapons at the same time that, they've invaded a sovereign country, Ukraine. This is crazy to not just extend this thing. You could extend it and then try to negotiate more too. So this is just, I don't know, this is nonsensical, frankly, and it risks a nuclear arms race, which nobody wants or could afford. Speaking of Ukraine, Ukrainian President Zelensky said that discussions between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine, those in Abu Dhabi, to end the war, that they included talk of U.S. Russia bilateral economic deals worth around $12 trillion. That's where the dollars to help end the war by June. So first of all, in your experience, Ben, are financial deals typical when negotiating terms to end a war? And that is a big number. Who's going to gain most from it? No, they're not, because they don't deal with the questions of Ukraine's sovereignty, where the line of, essentially the demilitarized zone is going to be in Ukraine, where the line of contact is that Russia controls. They don't address Ukraine's security guarantees. How do they know Russia doesn't just invade again? What we know is that Russia has been dangling this as the incentive for the Trump administration to essentially accede to its terms, to Russia's terms, right? So some of the proposals that have come from Russia have come from people like the person that runs their sovereign wealth fund. That's not usually the person at the negotiating table. I think what the Russians are transparently doing is appealing to Trump's kind of deal-making approach to foreign policy. And they're dealing with people like Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who similarly see themselves as kind of business people almost first and diplomats second, right? $12 trillion, like that's an absurd number. I mean, I don't think anybody can foresee a future in which there's $12 trillion of commerce. What you would normally be negotiating is the sanctions relief on Russia, right? Russia is still heavily sanctioned by the United States. We're skipping past that to deals. So I think if you're Zelensky, you think, look, if the United States, if that's one pathway for them to end the war, that's okay so long as they don't throw us under the bus. Where are our security guarantees? Right. Where is our territory? What are our borders going to be? So it makes the kind of picture kind of harder to assemble because the Russians are trying to skip ahead to the incentives of the United States in commercial deals, which would frankly probably benefit a pretty small number of Americans. I don't think this is going to be a huge boon to our economy. It's people who want to exploit oil and gas or other natural minerals. We'll see. I think the Ukraine war does not look like it's on the brink of ending anytime soon.